Hello, my name is Rowan Stowe. I'm the current Alabama state record holder in 2x2, and I'm going to make this video to show you some ways to deal with 2-gen scrambles or setups to 2-gen and when to do it. So what we need to get started off is about how to recognize if a scramble is 2-gen. So you can do this by looking at 6 cases. So here are 6 TCLL cases. They're all 2-gen, and if you solve a layer and if you solve a layer with R and U moves, or any 2-gen like R and F or L and U, and you get one of these cases, the scramble is 2-gen. So there's the soon, which is a pretty basic case. It can be done like this. This case, which can be done in 2-gen, like then this case would be done as the inverse. In this case. This case. And finally, this case. So with these cases, there are certain reasons on why we wouldn't just like solve a layer to get these cases. So the first thing is these 2 cases are these 3 are especially horrible, and you should never solve a layer to get these and try to do these algs unless it's like an RFU layer that's really easy, and because these cases are like they're pretty long and they can make your times go or get way worse. So I just wouldn't ever do these insolves if a scram is 2-gen. But these 3 on the other hand, you should be doing these in solves, and if you get one of these, it is reasonable to do this solution instead of one of the 2-gen tricks that I will show. And the reason for this is this one's 7 moves, this one is I think 5 moves. Yeah, and I think this one is like maybe a little more than 7, maybe 7 or a little bit more, but it's also like really easy to finish trick. So I know most people will only know CLL, and this video isn't really like meant for people who just know CLL or anything. But I mean, if you do know it, you can learn these algorithms and stuff, but I'm not sure how much it's worth it. But here are the alternatives of what you can do instead of doing a layer into those CLL algorithms. So first start off with this algorithm, which is a TCLL minus case, which is just double sexy. And it's really nice, and it's really good to get this case instead of something like the case of failure, like this case, which there's a few algs for it, but the algs I like is double sledge, double sexy. And this is pretty much just the last bit of the alg, so it's way shorter and it's way more ergonomic. And then the other case you can know is this case, which you can recognize by these 2 opposite stickers, and this pattern is a TCLL plus case, and it's the inverse of the other alg. It can be done as 2 inverse sexies. So you want to mainly be using those, or using setups to these when doing 2-gen scrams, because these would be way more worth it than pretty much any of the other algs except maybe soon or the 5 mover. With all that being said, let's start on a solve to where it might be worth it to do this. And I generated a 2-gen scramble, which you can tell is 2-gen because you can do R and U moves to set up to a 2-gen case, which we covered this case can be done 2-gen. So there are a few different ways to go about this, which you can insert the piece like this, which is a really good solution, and I don't think it's the best thing we can do. But with 2-gen scrambles, there will always be a bar, and you can always go to a different side. So this side just doesn't look really good. I mean, you can do that into a case, but it's just not one of the 2 cases we discussed. So really, you can look at different inserts here, like if you do that, which leads to this case, which is not too bad, but it's not what we're going for. So really, what could also be done is that, which let's lead to another case, double sledge, but it's 3-gen and it's not as good as the other 2 cases. So finally, there's this insert, which leads to one of the 2 cases that we talked about, which is really fast. And I just think that that's worth it here, because instead of doing this now, you can do R prime U2 RU R prime into this case, which is really fast, which can be done. Oh, let me get scram back. Which can be done like this, like something like that. So that's a scramble where you can apply this, and there will be more in-depth scrambles that we'll go into, but that's the basics for it, and that's mostly when you should use it, which if you didn't get it, you should cover, or when it's covered, you get this case, or what's the other case? Or this case, when you do it. If you get either of these cases, it is more worth it to find a different solution. If you need to go to a better CLL cases, like the other 3, like Soon, the 5 mover, or the other 7 mover, or double inverse sexy or double sexy. And I've used this in many solves to get sub 1s where they shouldn't have been possible. So let's start off with the scram that I kind of made up. I made a solution that seems pretty good, but let's just look at the scram, see what we see. So you first see this stuff, which I mean is not too bad, but then you can also look at a 3 move layer, which is right here. Looks okay, but if you realize that you can do an F move and then do this, and at least in this case, that means if you do an F move, at this point you get it becomes a 2-gen scramble, which is really useful because then you can plan off other places and see when it's best to do this. So you see, if you do this, at least 2-gen, and remember this is one of the bad cases, so you don't want to go into this. So you start looking at other solutions. So you can look at R prime F U prime there. Try one with that. That's okay, but it's not one of the cases that we covered. So you can also do RU to R prime, and when doing that, you get this case, which, if you remember, is one of the really good cases. So instead of having a worse solution that would look something like R prime F U2 RU R prime, and then go into the SALG, which would be you cancel. That's pretty bad. So yeah, instead of that, you could do R prime F RU2 R prime U prime RU R prime or RU R prime U prime RU R prime. So let's see if I can do it a little bit faster. And that's a 114 instead of what would the other case, or what would the other time be, which would probably have been a lot worse. And so that is one example of a time where you can use F moves to set up to 2-gen, which can be useful a lot of times when there's a really bad bar or a no bar. You can find F moves to 2-gen and then do what we talked about here, which can lead to 1.1s to sub 1s instead of a scram that seemed like it would be 1.6ables, something way worse. And I think that'll be it for the video, because those are just the main topics, and that is how I usually deal with scrams like that I notice have moves to 2-gen or are just 2-gen. And those are just, it's really good to know these solutions for them, and really good to know these 2 cases, because they're way shorter than the other cases, and it's just way better to know, which I might get into the other cases, the other 2-gen TCLL cases soon, when I'm covering TCLL, and when I do tutorials on TCLL and stuff, and recognition. But until then, I think these are the only 2 cases that are really worth knowing, which, again, the recognition for this are 2 opposite pieces in this kind of shape, and 2 same pieces in this kind of shape.